In the dead of night, I heard my name whispered from the trees, a voice not human, cold and ancient, calling me back to a promise I never fully understood. Shadows gathered around my bed, and the red cloth I found in my mother's handwriting suddenly felt like a weight I couldn't escape. I knew I had to face what lurked in the darkness, because the forest curse wasn't just haunting me, it was demanding a sacrifice I might never return from. Every whisper, every shadow, was a reminder that I had already made a choice, and that choice could change everything forever. And in that moment, I realized the true cost of the promise was far darker than I'd ever imagined. The shadows were waiting. The forest was calling. And I knew I couldn't run anymore. Because some promises, once made, can never truly be broken. The first time I heard my name whispered from the trees, I thought I was losing my mind. It was 3:07 a.m. I remember because I looked at my phone just before the battery died. I was wide awake, my heart thudding, my mouth dry. And then I heard it. Ugochi. That's my name. But the voice was not human. It was slow, wet, like something crawling through mud. It came from outside my window, right through the thin cracks of the wooden shutters. My skin turned cold. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Who or what was calling me? I had returned to my grandmother's village 2 weeks ago to care for her. I thought I left the city's chaos for peace. But I walked into something else. Something ancient. Something waiting. That night, I stuffed cotton in my ears and slept with a Bible pressed to my chest. But even in my sleep, it came again. Ugochi. Only this time, it laughed. A dry, broken sound like bones grinding against each other. I was no longer sure it was just a dream. I think the night remembered me. The next night, I locked every window. I whispered Psalm 91 until my lips hurt. Still, I didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I heard the wind shift. Then the floorboard near my door creaked. I held my breath. Something was there. Not outside, not this time. Inside the house. I sat up slowly. The candle had burned out. The room was thick with shadows, but I knew I wasn't alone. I could feel the air move, like something breathing. Then came the sound I will never forget. 3 soft knocks. Not at the front door. Not on the wall. At my bedroom door. Knock. 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 Ugochi. I nearly screamed. My hands trembled as I reached for the Bible under my pillow. But it was gone. The voice came again, lower this time. You came back. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Then, as quickly as it came, it was gone. No footsteps. No door opening. Just silence. Morning came like a lie. When I told Grandma, she didn't look surprised. She just said, "Some doors you open as a child, Ugochi, can't be closed so easily." I didn't understand. Not yet. I finally asked Grandma, "Do you hear it too?" She looked up slowly, spoon paused in midair. Her eyes didn't blink. What did you hear? I swallowed hard. My name. From the trees. Then, inside the house. Still, no reaction. No shock. Just that distant stare, as if her mind was elsewhere. Then she said something that chilled me more than the whispers. "They know you're back." I leaned closer. Who knows? She stood up, her bowl untouched. You were only 5. Your mother begged them that night. You don't remember. Remember what? Grandma walked to the window. The trees outside rustled, but there was no breeze. You were sick. Dying. Your mother went to the forest. She begged them to spare you. My stomach dropped. Begged who? Grandma didn't answer. She just closed the curtain and whispered, they gave her what she wanted. But gifts from the forest always ask for something in return. That night, I didn't sleep at all. And the knocking didn't stop. That evening, I searched the old wooden drawers in Grandma's room, hoping for answers. I found faded pictures, dried herbs, broken jewelry. Then, at the bottom of the last drawer, wrapped in palm leaves, I found it. A small piece of red cloth. It was folded neatly, stained at the corners. But the moment I touched it, I felt cold, like something had just noticed me. I called out, "Grandma, what's this?" She came slowly, sat beside me, and stared at the cloth like it was alive. "That's what your mother wore when she made the pact," she said quietly. "What pact?" She walked into the forest barefoot, dressed in red, and called out your name 3 times. "Why?" "She offered your name in place of your breath." I didn't understand. My heart pounded in my ears. "You were supposed to belong to them, Ugochi. The night spirits. That was the deal. You leave. But one day, when you return, they come for what is theirs." I stared at the red cloth in my hand. It felt heavier than it should. I was never supposed to come back. But I had. That night, the whispers grew louder. Not just my name anymore, but words I couldn't ignore. "Ugochi, come." I tried to cover my ears, but the voices burrowed inside my head. It was like they were inside the walls, inside my skin. I couldn't sleep. I sat by the fire, shaking. Grandma watched me quietly. Then she said, "They will ask you to do something." "Do what?" I whispered. "To come with them. To walk into the forest. To pay the price." I felt panic rise, choking me. "I won't go." She looked sad. "You may not have a choice." The voice came again, this time clearer, stronger. "Ugochi, you promised." I closed my eyes and screamed into the dark, but the shadows only smiled. For the first time, I realized this was no longer just a memory. This was a command. And I was running out of time. Days passed, but the whispers never stopped. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, I saw a figure standing just beyond the village edge, half hidden by the shadows. He wore a tattered cloak, his eyes glowing faintly in the fading light. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. He called out softly, "Ugochi." I wanted to run, but my legs froze. "Why are you here?" I asked, voice shaking. He smiled, a slow, cruel curve. "To remind you. The pact is real. The debt must be paid." My chest tight. "Who are you?" He stepped closer, voice like a whisper on dry leaves. "I am the messenger of the night spirits." I wanted to scream, but my throat closed. The villagers passed by, unaware of the shadow watching us both. I realized then, no one could see this curse but me. And the messenger had come to claim what was promised. That night, the forest whispered louder than ever. I sat near the fire, trying to steady my racing heart. Suddenly, a breeze swept through the trees. It was colder than usual, and carried a voice I could barely hear. "Ugochi, come." I wrapped my shawl tighter, but the voice pulled at me like a rope. Then, I saw movement beyond the firelight, shadowy figures between the trees. Their eyes glowed faintly, watching me. I wanted to run, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. Grandma appeared behind me, holding a small wooden charm. She pressed it into my hand. "This will keep you safe, for now," she whispered. "But for how long?" I asked, voice trembling. She shook her head. "The spirits will not wait forever. You must decide." I looked toward the dark forest, the place my mother had entered all those years ago. I remembered the red cloth, the whispered name, the promise I never knew I had made. I wanted to scream, to fight, but the silence around me was louder than any shout. The shadows were waiting. And so was my fate. That night, I dreamed again. In the dream, I was a child again, standing barefoot in the dark forest. The trees loomed tall and silent, their branches like fingers reaching for the sky. My mother stood before me, dressed in the red cloth I had found. She held my tiny hand and whispered, "Remember the promise." Then, the night spirits appeared, shadowy shapes with glowing eyes. They circled us, silent but watching. I wanted to run, but I was frozen. The spirits reached out, their voices soft but cold. "It is time." I woke up gasping, sweat soaking my shirt. The red cloth was on my bed, folded neatly. I didn't put it there. Fear pressed on my chest like a heavy stone. I realized the spirits weren't just calling me, they were reminding me. The promise made long ago was about to come due. I was trapped between the past and the present, and no one could help me. Only one thing was certain, the forest wanted me. And soon. The next day, I met Amora, a girl from the village I barely knew. She looked at me with tired eyes, as if she carried a secret too heavy for her age. "Don't ignore the voices," she said quietly, glancing over her shoulder. "They don't stop. Not until you answer." I frowned. "What do you mean? What should I answer?" She shook her head. "No one wants to talk about it, but every time a girl hears the night call, it means the pact is coming due." I felt cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because my sister was taken last year. She disappeared into the forest wearing red. No one has seen her since." My heart pounded. I looked around. The village seemed peaceful, but beneath the calm was a dark truth no one spoke of. "Maybe you can still change it," Amora said, hope flickering in her eyes. "But you have to act before it's too late." I wanted to believe her. But the whispers followed me all day, calling my name, reminding me that the shadows were waiting, and I had to choose. That night, I sat alone under the cracked ceiling of my childhood room, the red cloth folded on my lap. The whispers filled the air, weaving through the silence, wrapping around my thoughts. "Come, fulfill your promise." I closed my eyes and saw my mother's face, her eyes desperate, her hands pleading with shadows in the dark forest. The choice lay before me like a knife: run away and let another girl pay the price, or walk into the forest and meet the fate promised to me long ago. I wanted to scream, to fight, but the fear was a heavy cloak. Grandma's words echoed in my mind: "Some doors you open as a child can't be closed so easily." The night stretched on. At dawn, I wrapped the red cloth around my shoulders. With every step toward the forest, my heart shattered. I didn't know if I was walking to freedom or to my end. But I knew one thing. The shadows had already claimed a part of me. And they were waiting. The forest welcomed me like an old, dark friend. Branches reached out like fingers, shadows danced with the flicker of my lantern. The red cloth on my shoulders felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of 1,000 whispered names. The air smelled of damp earth and secrets. With every step deeper, the whispers grew louder, now chanting my name with urgency. "Ugochi, come." My heart pounded, but I kept moving. I thought about the village, about Grandma's warnings, about Amora's eyes filled with fear and hope. The forest seemed alive, watching, waiting. Then, between the trees, I saw them. Figures draped in shadow, their eyes glowing like embers in the night. They didn't speak. They only reached for me. I stopped. For a moment, I felt peace. Or maybe it was surrender. The night had come for me. And I was ready, or at least, I thought I was. The shadows closed in, cold and silent. One stepped forward, a figure tall and thin, with eyes like burning coals. It spoke in a voice like wind through dead leaves. "Ugochi, you remember the promise your mother made?" I nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I do." The figure extended a hand wrapped in shadows. Will you fulfill the pact? My mind raced. If I said no, what would happen? If I said yes, would I lose myself? I looked down at the red cloth, the symbol of a promise made long ago. I don't want to run anymore, I said, voice trembling. The shadow smiled, eyes flickering. So be it. A cold wind swept through the trees, and I felt a strange calm. Then the figure faded into the darkness. The whispers stopped. For the first time in weeks, silence. But inside, I knew the pact was only beginning. Dawn crept over the village like a silent promise. I woke to birdsong, the red cloth still wrapped tightly around my shoulders. The forest seemed less menacing in the daylight, but the weight of the night's pact hung heavy in my chest. Grandma was waiting outside, her eyes softer now, but knowing. You faced them, she said simply. I nodded, unsure what to say. Many before you feared the pact, she continued. Few understood it. I asked, what happens now? She smiled faintly. Now, you live, free, but marked. Marked. I looked down at my hands, searching for a sign. There will be changes, she warned. You will hear whispers, see shadows. But you must never forget who you are. I swallowed hard, the fear still there, but mingled with a strange strength. The village was waking, unaware of what had passed in the dark. But I knew. The forest had called my name. And I had answered. Not as a victim, but as someone who had faced the shadows and survived. Days passed, but nothing seemed the same. The air felt thicker, heavier, like the forest's breath was still with me. People in the village avoided my eyes, whispering behind closed doors. No one said my name anymore. It was as if I had become invisible or cursed. At night, the whispers returned, but different now. They were softer, almost like a warning. Ugochi, beware. I tried to ignore them, but they grew louder each night. Grandma said, the pact changes you. It ties your soul to the forest, but it also gives you strength. I didn't feel strong. I felt trapped. One evening, I found Amara waiting by the well. She looked at me with understanding. You survived, she said simply. Yes, I whispered. But at what cost? She smiled sadly. You carry a burden many never see. But you also carry hope. Hope. The word lingered in my mind like a fragile flame. Maybe this was not the end, but a new beginning. The shadows may have called my name. But I was learning to call back. One night, as the moon hung low, I heard a knock at the door. I opened it slowly. No one was there. But on the doorstep lay a small bundle wrapped in faded red cloth, the same shade as the one I wore. Inside, I found a note written in shaky handwriting. Do not forget. The pact is eternal. Your name is marked, but so is your choice. Fear gripped me, but also a strange calm. I realized the forest hold was not just a curse, it was a test. A test of courage, of will, and of heart. I thought of all the girls before me whose names were erased by silence. I thought of Amora, of Grandma, and of my mother. I understood then that the pact was more than a promise, it was a legacy. One I could accept, resist, or break. But whichever path I chose, it would change the village forever. I folded the note carefully and looked out into the night. The shadows moved among the trees, watching. Waiting. And I whispered back, I am not afraid. The village felt different after that night. I noticed the way mothers held their daughters a little tighter. The way the children whispered stories by the fire, speaking my name with awe and fear. The pact's shadow lingered, but something had changed. I started telling my story. At first, only to Amora and Grandma. Then, quietly, to others who listened with wide eyes. The story of a promise made in fear, of a girl caught between worlds. Of the courage it took to face the darkness, to walk into the forest wearing red. Each word broke the silence that had hidden the truth for so long. And with every telling, Ugochi's whisper softened, the shadows lessened. The village was healing. Not because the curse was gone, but because the fear was faced. And the story was shared. Years have passed since I walked into the forest wearing the red cloth. The whispers stopped. The shadows faded. No girl in the village has borne the name Ugochi since. Some say I vanished. Others say I became part of the forest itself. But I know the truth. I faced the darkness, and in doing so, I freed not just myself, but others too. The curse did not end with me. It transformed. The village learned to speak its fears, to name the shadows, and in that naming, the shadows lost their power. I carried the red cloth still, folded carefully, a reminder of the promise made and kept. The forest is quiet now, but its breath is always near. Sometimes, when the night is still, I hear a whisper, not of fear, but of peace. My name, called softly, as if in thanks. The pact was never just a curse. It was a call to courage. And I answered. When I first heard my name whispered from the forest, I was terrified, unsure whether it was madness, a curse, or something darker. But through that fear, I discovered a truth that many in my village have long avoided. Sometimes, the past binds us in ways we cannot see, and promises made in desperation can haunt generations. This story isn't just about spirits calling from the trees, it's about the courage it takes to face the parts of ourselves and our histories we'd rather hide. It's about the power of choice, even when that choice seems impossible. And most importantly, it's about breaking the silence that allows fear to grow stronger. By sharing my journey, I hope to remind you that no matter how heavy the past feels, and no matter how dark the path may seem, courage is a light that can transform even the deepest shadows. So if you ever hear your name whispered in the night, listen carefully. It may be fear calling. But it could also be your courage, waiting for you to answer. The forest is quiet now, but sometimes, when the night is still, I hear my name whispered softly, not in fear, but in peace. I answered the call, and in doing so, I freed not just myself, but those who came after me. Asterisk. What would you do if a shadow from your past called your name tonight? Would you run, or would you face it with courage? What do you think? Drop it in the comment section below, I'd love to hear from you. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Hit the notification bell to stay updated. Your support means everything to us.